I'm Chris, and over the next few weeks, I'm going to be selling a lot of my comics on eBay. Each week, I'm going to have 9 lots up for bid. And the first lot of each week is going to be a large lot of a bunch of comic books. So, without further ado, paying homage to classic Silver Age elements while giving them a positive modern look. Yes, this collection of Justice League stories is written by none other than Grant Morrison. This includes the first 6 trades of the JLA run that revitalized the franchise after decades of languishing in editorial uncertainty. It stars veterans Superman, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, Flash, and Aquaman, now with authentic hook-hand action and realistic beard. It also has neophytes Green Lantern and Green Arrow, and a part-time Batman. Oh, and some Angel Guy, and Plastic Man. And I think Cyborg. It's a lot of guys by the time it's all over. Anyway, the lineup gives the characters contrast. A team of veteran, well-informed heroes would have been boring. I'm sure fans of the characters portrayed as rookies complained about it, but having fallible new legacy characters invites the possibility of faults in character and judgment, which makes for better drama. But then, I drink fanboy tears as an aphrodisiac, so maybe I'm biased. This Justice League goes up against White Martians, the Key, Darkseid, a new Legion of Doom, or whatever they're calling themselves, Superman's mullet. Anyway, Grant Morrison's run wraps up in World War III, not the one with Black Adam. It's the Justice League coming up against a super weapon that threatens to destroy Earth with violent atavistic impulses. Despite the global calamities, each story manages to remain focused on character with a diverse cast of smart, sympathetic heroes who every inch belong in the Justice League. With the exception of the unironically delivered phrase, "we all have serious superpowers." It is a fantastic run of high concepts that allows you to push beyond the edges of traditional superhero comics and into something truly wondrous. Also, Batman punches the shit out of things. If there's any run with its feet on the ground and its heart in the stars, it's Grant Morrison's run on Justice League. Trying to deny that gaping hole in your life? Avoiding the realization of your utter irrelevance in the grand scheme of the universe? Maybe you just need to ignore the tiny ills of your personal life. Well, don't try heroin or alcoholism. Take it from a guy who sells comic books. The new addiction you need is a comic book. If you ever watched The Prisoner but thought, I wish this was a comic book with teenagers, then you might like Morning Glories. It is a quiet, chilling book where you're never quite sure who's in control and what's going on. Yeah, and that's fine, it's fine. It's the slowest of slow boils. It is the only time I have been narratively blueballed by a comic. And if you're the type to focus on the big secret and skip over the characterization, then you will quickly get frustrated with this one. If you can appreciate a story that never lets the world-shaking science fiction plot overshadow the character work that lies at its heart, you'll find that Morning Glories is your new addiction. Volumes 2 through 4 are currently available through Image. I think there are comics that every comics reader should read at least once before they die. These are comics that are an essential part of comics history. They tell a unique story, or they show the true potential for the medium. Conveniently, I'm selling some of these classic comics. Marvel Secret Wars. Now, last week, I called Crisis on Infinite Earths the classic crossover event story. That's true, but Secret Wars is the first company-wide crossover event. If you're a Star Trek fan, pull out a shot glass and get ready to play the classic Star Trek drinking game as I go over the plot. The heroes of the Marvel Universe suddenly find mysterious, technologically advanced structures, drink, which they then go into for no good reason, and they find themselves stranded on a strange alien world, drink, without Daredevil, drink. There, they're confronted with a strange omnipotent energy being, Consume, who wishes to understand the difference between good and evil by pitting heroes against villains. Finish the glass. Without Daredevil, refill and drink. There's super science, drink. Boulders being hurtled in desert environments, drink. Human men teaching alien women the meaning of this strange thing called love, drink. And no Daredevil, drink. It's great. For something that Jim Shooter allegedly wrote to sell some toys, it is everything you want from a Marvel company-wide crossover. Characters who barely know each other are working together and even fighting with one another because of their personalities. The X-Men are seeing themselves as outsiders even amongst heroes. Spider-Man owns the X-Men. Doctor Doom flips the script because he's Doctor fucking Doom. It's big. It's epic. And by its very nature, the continuity-changing results of it are limited to the character elements instead of changes to political and social landscapes, which will only matter until the next big event. For all of its toyetic qualities, Secret Wars is an honest-to-goodness real crossover that has everything you want from a comics event. It's a classic crossover. It's classic Hulk, except he can talk and he's kind of intelligent. It's classic Fantastic Four, except that Ben's powers are pretty spotty and Susan isn't there. Okay, it's classic Spider-Man, except that he's got the Venom suit. It's classic X-Men, except Professor X can walk and they're teamed up with Magneto, which I'm not sure is a classic X-Men thing or not anymore. Okay, it's classic Iron Man, except that Tony Stark is drying out, so it's Rhodes in the armor. Okay, well, all right, it is classic Captain America. It's classic Thor, classic Doctor Doom, and it's classic comics. And no Daredevil. Drink. All right, Hitman Volumes 1 and 2. So I said earlier that Garth Ennis does two things: chew bubblegum and write perfect Punisher stories. That's not 100% true. He chews bubblegum and writes perfect stories about people with guns. Hitman shows that more than any other writer, Ennis seems to accept violence, not as a bloodthirsty child who relishes it, but as an adult who understands it as an aspect of human interaction, neither condemning nor condoning. Tommy Moynihan is a hitman with scruples who gets X-ray vision and telepathy after something incredibly comic booky and not altogether important happens. This enables him to fight back against the corrupt forces that affect his life and create a small bubble of relative justice around himself. Well, I mean, justice given that he kills people for a living. Hitman's about Tommy Moynihan and his friends. They're tough guys that kill people, but they're also friends. It's like Golden Girls for Hitmen. In fact, that's the book, Hitman. It's Golden Girls for Hitmen. And if you don't think Golden Girls was one of the best shows on television, then you're either drooling in your computer screen from a coma, or you haven't watched Golden Girls lately. This thing is amazing. Written by Fabian Nicieza, this run of the Thunderbolts centers around Baron Zemo gathering a supervillain army against the backdrop of Marvel's Civil War. The Thunderbolts are usually at their best when they're stabbing each other in the back or vying for supremacy, but Nicieza makes Zemo's recruitment efforts to fight the Grandmaster and balance the politics of the war between Captain America and Iron Man into part of a really good redemptive arc for him. It's an excuse to mine the rich Marvel vaults of C-list villains without really falling into a continuity trap or gratuitous nostalgia. It's a solid superhero story about redemption, and I say this a lot, but I mean it every single time. This book is really, really good, and seriously, it should be the standard quality for comics these days, instead of an outstanding exception to the rule. Alright, so I have impeccable taste in comics. I can't help it, I'm just good at it. But some of the comics I get are awful, just awful. They're bad, awful. And if I try to say something nice about them just because I'm selling them, my conscience will just basically throw gasoline on me and light me on fire. It'd be a bad scene. So here are my sale fails. Dark Knight Strikes Again, Volumes 1 and 2. It is a scientific fact that no one owns the third volume of this. It is like the Star Wars prequels. I got the first one because I reread The Dark Knight Returns, and I cannot emphasize strongly enough this is not The Dark Knight Returns. This is the sequel, The Dark Knight Strikes Again, written unbelievably enough by the same guy. Anyway, Volume 1, which is right here, was awful. But I bought the second volume because I thought it was inconceivable. Just inconceivable it could be as bad as Volume 1. And it was. I was in denial for a while. I reread them both. But there was no social commentary. There's no sharp-edged examination of Batman as a character. No daring shot aimed right at the heart of a corrupt society. It was just a random cacophony of DC characters stretched into unimaginative pap and hard lines to cover a weak, rehashed plot before, in their turn, each one was called and they shuffled off stage left to the dramatic Deathatron. Registered trademark. Dark Knight Strikes Again is DC's Crisis in Infinite Nursing Homes. And no one wants to see old people fight or fuck. Not even geriatric Superman and retiree Wonder Woman. Especially not geriatric Superman and retiree Wonder Woman. Other times you don't care about continuity. You want to pick up a comic, enjoy the hell out of it, and then put it down when you're done. You don't want to back reference anything. You don't want to wait every Wednesday for a new issue to come out. You want something that's one and done. Folks, I've got your one. Knight and Squire by Paul Cornell. One of the lots from last week mentioned Knight and Squire. They were cool enough that they got their own mini written by Paul Cornell. He creates his own British superhero culture which balances a certain genial atmosphere with a deadly serious conflict. Knight and Squire has a story, but the real story is the characters and the setting. The Batman of Britain and his sidekick, Squire, stop evil princes, mad suits of armor, their own demons, and Jarvis Poker, Britain's Joker, in a tale that's alternatingly bright, violent, romantic, friendly, and tragic. It's a good one. Sometimes you're just tired of it. Marvel, DC, Marvel, DC. You want something different, but a lot of the different stuff is crap. It's hard to know what's good. Conveniently, here I am, holding something that is incredibly good, and unlike anything you've read before. Something like XKCD, a webcomic about romance, sarcasm, math, and language. It's absolutely the nerdiest thing ever. It's available online for free, which kind of makes pitching this book pretty hard. It is a hard copy, so the benefit to you is that you can read it even after a technological apocalypse that destroys the internet. Imagine everyone else huddled around a campfire while you're reading jokes about segmentation faults and difficulties involved with upgrading your RAM or something. That sounds like it'd be fun, right? Right? Yeah, it'd be fun. So, there are a lot of good writers in comics. Simultaneously, too many and not enough. So I want to take a little bit of time each week to focus on one of the better writers out there. This week's featured writer is Alan Moore. I know, kind of a layup. Anyway, top 10 shows how Alan Moore can blow everyone else out of the fucking water when he lowers himself to ignoring the big points of deconstructing comics, Watchmen, the nature of authoritarian police states, V for Vendetta, and trying to sing the Grant Morrison mainstream song about the historical figures of British literature, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Top 10 is a police procedural based in a world where everyone has superpowers. It juxtaposes the mundane elements of life, like starting a job, having a rodent infestation, and getting into barroom brawls with supercharged elements inherent to something like the city of Neapolis. It pays attention to the details and has a cast that is one of the most nuanced and multidimensional in comics. This thing won an Eisner because it's well engineered, original, and entertaining. Well, that's it. It's all 9 lots. But what if there was one more lot left? What if... When a popular X-Men character slips through the cracks, Judd Winnick is there to catch them? This is Exiles, Volume 1. Collecting different heroes from alternate universes, Blink from Age of Apocalypse, Magnus, the child of Magneto and Rogue, Nocturne, the daughter of Nightcrawler and Scarlet Witch, Mimic, who's apparently the leader of the X-Men or something, Thunderbird, who's John Proudstar remade as a Horseman of Apocalypse, Morph, who's just sort of an X-Man. Well, he's in Happy X-Man. That's the rarest of all, really. Anyway, they jump from timeline to timeline, looking to put right what once went wrong with the vague guidance of well, all right, he's called Talus here. Anyway, the opening isn't coy, but it does get to the point. 6 characters on a team trying to help out different worlds. It's solid work, and Volume 1 puts the fundamentals in place for a book that leverages the rich history and myriad possibilities of the X-Men.